Hello, everyone, and welcome to Looking Up. We are a podcast for Christian women, and we welcome you to come and join us just can pretend like you're sitting at a kitchen table with us and drink a cup of coffee or have a Diet Coke or whatever it is that you like. We're just going to have a good conversation today and talk about something that's really important to both Kathy and me, and I think it's important to everyone, really. It's something that will touch everyone's lives. So we're looking forward to having that discussion. And I'm here. My name is Carla Moore, and I'm here with Kathy Pollard. And Kathy, how's it going today?
It's going great. You and I always chat a little bit before we hit record, and I look forward to that every single week. So this is a double blessing for me to get to do this podcast with you. And we may have mentioned already on this podcast that we have a trip coming up.
Yeah.
And so we've been chatting about that, but we want everybody to know that we're going to do our best with a little help from some friends to also be able to record while we're gone so that we can keep the episodes airing while we're gone without missing any. So Lord willing, we'll be able to do that, but looking forward to being with you as we record and experience that together. So that's exciting.
Try not to do it like we did the one time we did live with the wind noise, and I don't think anyone can hear us. So we're going to try to do a better job of that. We have someone, Brian Ketchum, that's going to help us with the recording. So I'm sure he'll know how best to handle stuff like that.
Yeah. Also, our video died that time.
Oh, that's right. And we didn't know it for a little while.
Yeah.
We just kept going.
That was a flop all the way around, really.
Yeah, it was not a flop. It was a learning experience.
A learning experience. That's a lovely way to put it. Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what we learned from it, except don't do it that way again. But yeah. But it was fun.
Yes, it was. Yeah, maybe we can wear our Looking Up shirts again.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're looking forward to it and looking forward to sharing the trip with whoever wants to listen and hear about what's going on. And we've just been talking about different ways of being able to share that and share the experience. And it's a pretty neat thing to do. So hope that y'all will join us as we go several different places. We're going to Rome first, and
I don't know the order, but Athens, Ephesus, Israel,
Pompeii.
And most places with biblical significance, but some not. It's like Santorini.
The only one that I think is Santorini that doesn't really have a biblical significance, and that's kind of an add-on because the original schedule put us in Israel, I think, for 3 days, and something about the port, they had to change things up. So we got one less day in Israel, which we're not happy about, and but we do get to see Santorini, so that's kind of neat. Never been there.
No, me neither. It'll be exciting.
Yeah.
So have you been thrifting since we last talked?
I have, and I found some neat stuff. First thing I want to show you, if you can, whoever can see this, I thought was fun. It's a shirt. It's kind of a sweatshirt, and it says, "Yes, I'm cold. Me 24/7."
That is so perfect.
Yes, it is. And I think Melody Sawyer's has one of those. I think I've seen that on her before, and I laughed. I'm always cold.
I am too.
I'm wearing long sleeves, and today I think the high is supposed to be like 85, but I'm just a cold-natured person. Don't like to be cold. But that's not the only thing I found. I found a cookie jar. It's a vintage cookie jar. If you can see, if you're watching. Isn't this fun?
How cute.
Yeah. I don't know how old it is, but I can tell it's pretty old. It's very heavy. It says cookies, but some of the paint's worn off. I kind of try to look it up on, to see if others on eBay. And they called it a Goldilocks cookie jar, and like from the 40s. So I'm excited about that. Right now I just have like my small tools, measuring spoons and little tiny whisks and things like that. And I found another quilt.
Oh, save the best for last.
It's in excellent shape. And I don't know what pattern this is. It's just the little tiny 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-sided. So that would be not a hexagon, is it? I don't remember. But anyway, when I opened it up, it was in excellent shape. Sometimes you find these priced, they call them cutter quilts, and you can cut little pieces from them and make things, but there's no holes in it. There's no wear spots or anything. And it was priced a little higher. It was like $35, which is worth it to me. So I loved it.
It's really pretty.
I just like those vintage things. Obviously, you can tell I like vintage stuff.
Nicely done.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a fun thrifting week. So I enjoyed that. What about you? You got
I
new
like
things going on?
I like vintage stuff too, and I always have. Even
Hmm.
from the time as a newlywed, I liked collecting English teacups and old, pieces of fabric and things like that. So I feel like it was a little bit cooler to do that when you're young. But when you get to be our age and you like vintage things, it just means,
Hmm.
well, you're old, so
Stuff
you
from
like
our
old things.
childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does make me wonder, like, what should I hold on to? Because it's going to be vintage one of these days, and
That's
I think it's
right.
just junk. Because I imagine this, like this cookie jar was just an ordinary cookie jar, but now
Hmm.
it has the vintage color to it, and it's just fun. But I'm wondering, I'm looking around my house thinking, I wonder if that's going to be vintage in about 40 years. Maybe
I'm
so.
sure it will. Things that
Yeah.
will last anyway.
Yeah. So what's
Yeah.
going on your little farm?
Well, I told you last week that Peaches got a gift.
Yeah.
Well,
The
this
cowbell.
this week she got a note.
Peaches needs her own mailbox.
she Kelly Nix had tried some of her milk, and when she returned the jar, there was a note inside, and Peach's name was on the envelope, not mine.
Oh,
And I just have to read it because it's really cute. But it says,
okay.
Peaches, we just wanted to drop you a note to say thank you for the delicious milk. I was skeptical at first, but I'm a believer. We're so glad you found a home at Motley Meadows. Please convey to Kathy and Neil how thankful and grateful we are for the tender care they're giving you and for sharing their bounty. She signed Fresh Milk Fans, Kelly and Harold. And then P.S. Try and be a little nicer to Kathy. Ease up on the tail swatting and kicking. If not for her, you might not have such a nice home.
Did you take it outside and read it to her?
No,
I think you should.
I definitely should do that.
I mean, you're reading her mail. It's only nice for you to take it out and
That's
read it
right.
to her.
She's
Do
so
you drink the
fun.
milk warm? I'm just curious. I know that you refrigerate it so it gets cold, but have you tried it warm?
The very first time I tried it, it was warm because it was fresh from the cow. I mean, it was
Hmm.
freshly filtered from the cow, but I hadn't chilled it yet. But
Yeah.
since
And what'd
then,
you
I,
think?
I mean, it tasted good.
Yeah.
It still tasted good, but I haven't drunk it warm since then. I have started saving some recipes. There's supposed to be a nighttime soothing drink that involves warming up a little raw milk and,
Hmm.
adding a few spices to it. But I
Hmm.
haven't tried any of them yet.
Because warm milk just doesn't sound good to me.
I love warm milk. I like the way it smells. I think it makes it taste a little bit naturally sweeter.
Hmm.
Now I do steam it for my coffee every morning.
Yeah. Yeah. I put it in your coffee.
Hmm.
That's different to me. But just to drink a glass of warm milk, and I've always heard, that's what you're supposed to do before you go to bed to make you sleepy, but
Hmm.
it just doesn't sound appetizing to me. But I'll take your word for it.
It is good. It is good. And then I was going to share that my sister had me over for a craft day.
Hmm.
She met me at the door with a lovely little drink with lime wedge and all that kind of stuff. And
She is the hostess with the
she
mostest.
really is. And then she has a little hobby house. And she had the table set up with all of our stuff laid out for us. And we made, for those of you watching, you'll be able to see, we made these little fall
Oh, it's
pumpkins.
a little pumpkin. Cute.
And she had all these different fabrics that we chose from and cut them into strips and then wrapped the strips around these little pumpkins. And there's twine and raffia and little moss and leaves,
Hmm.
just we found sticks outside for the pumpkin stems. And so hers look way better than mine because you know me and crafts.
They look like a success story, not a
Yeah, from
fail.
a distance, they look even
Uh-huh.
better. Yeah,
Yeah,
if I
they're
hold
cute.
it way back here, it looks
Very
really
cute.
good.
Hmm.
So that was fun. And then she made us a fish taco lunch, and then we played a game. So it was just a lovely, lovely
Yeah.
time together, unrushed. I'm so thankful that she's here and we can do that. And that was last Thursday. And then yesterday, Jennifer Harrison came over and we made soap
Oh,
and spent a few hours hanging out together. Well, she brought me a soap mold. For those
oh,
of you that can
fun.
see it,
Yeah.
yeah, this is the kind where you pour it in there and it kind of
Hmm.
makes those
So
knobs
you
on
can
the
kind of
soap. So
scrub.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
it feels like a little massage bar
Yeah.
while you're washing off. And she made homemade tiramisu
Oh, man.
and brought it.
Next time, let me
Oh,
know and I'll fly
oh,
up.
it
That's one
was
of my
so,
favorites.
oh, mine too. It was so, so good. She did a great job. And she made the cream, freshly whipped cream soaked to the lady fingers in espresso. I mean, the whole 9 yards, nice layers when she cut into it. It was so good.
Did she
So
bring the whole pan over
she
there?
brought the whole pan and left the whole
And
pan.
left it.
Yes.
Man, Jennifer,
Yes. Yeah.
let me know when to come and I'll
It was
come.
great. It was
Sounds
fun.
like it. Well, that sounds
Yeah.
like a fun day.
So,
I'm glad you got to
mhm.
spend the whole day with, didn't you spend the whole day? I was thinking that
Mhm.
you, not with Jennifer, but with Christy.
Well, I went over there in the morning and I left probably about 3 o'clock. So most of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
It's fun as adults to be able to spend time.
Mhm.
Sisters, anyway. I don't have a sister, but if I had one, I would.
Well, I don't have a brother, so we kind of even out.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll stop there. But Doug and I are not going to go have lunch together and make crap. That kind of makes me laugh to think about.
You're
Okay,
not
Doug,
gonna decorate
if
a
you get wind
pumpkin
of this, I
together?
want you to think of a craft. He's got an old truck, so he'd have me out there like welding something onto his truck, which might be fun. I don't
It
know,
might
might be fun.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we
So,
went to New Hampshire this past weekend. It was a really
mhm.
quick trip, like really quick. We went Friday morning. We had to set our alarm at 2:30, something
Oh
like that.
no.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those nights where you're
Ugh.
like, why even go to bed?
Yes.
And we made ourselves go to bed at 9. But even that, you're
Mhm.
like, okay, go to sleep, go to sleep.
Yeah. If I go to
Can't go to
sleep
sleep.
right now,
Yeah. Then you
I would
start doing
get
math.
4 hours.
Okay, now it's down to 3.5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, it was worth it because that church there, the Lakes Region Church of Christ in Tilton, New Hampshire, has been part of our family, like
Mhm.
literally. Well, not blood family, but back in I want to say the late 80s, early 90s, my mom and dad, that was their vacation. They would go up to the Northeast and they would just
Really?
drive. Yeah,
Oh.
they were leaf peepers,
Hmm.
but I think they had been to Connecticut some in their early marriage, but they started going to Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont, and they would just
Hmm.
drive. But then in their visit, they got to know this church in Tilton, New Hampshire, and they
Hmm.
got to know the people pretty well. And the more, every year they'd go back, and then eventually they began, with the congregation there, they began a lectureship. And I think dad kind of helped to introduce them to some people in the South that they might not have known. And of
Hmm.
course, they introduced dad and mom to people in the North. And so I think that this year is 25th, no, probably about the 27th or 28th anniversary of that lectureship. But
Wow.
yeah, it's still going on. And we just love that church. We took Jake when he was 5. It was his 5th birthday. And we took Micah once, and Jordan's the only one that we didn't ever get to take with us. And I can't remember exactly why it just fell that way,
Mhm.
but I've always wished that he could go. But Rob and Martha Bluen, they're some of our
Mhm.
dearest friends on this earth, and they just built a new house. And I was honestly a little apprehensive about it because so many good memories are tied up in their older house that
Mhm.
is not far from the church building. And Martha's kitchen was about as big as this table. It was a teeny tiny little kitchen, but she was always busy in it. And there's certain things that we just expect, like her coffee cake and her chili. And so it was just fun to be in her kitchen, in her new kitchen. And I love their new place. And it's just, begging for new memories to be made. I went through her recipe book while I was there and found a couple of your deep dark chocolate cake was in there. And there was one other, I can't remember. I think I sent you a picture, but anyway, it was a joy to be there and to be with them. We did a marriage seminar, and but Saturday night we got to just hang out at their house, and Martha and I went on a walk, and it was just so much fun. On Sunday before we left, they took us to this place where they have um I don't know exactly how to describe it, but they have like a membership to they buy shares in their groceries. This farm,
Oh.
they grow, and I thought of you when we went there because they had fields of corn, and they grow their own vegetables, and they grow all of these things. They have cows, and so they can sell there. They can sell the milk,
Hmm.
and I don't know what all the you know laws are there, but it must be obviously different than Kentucky. It was
Mhm.
called Surwick Farms,
Hmm.
and it was just a lot of fun to go there. And I mean, I think they have soaps and things like that too. Just looks
Very
like a place
fun.
that you would be at really at
Yes.
home. and visiting. So
Hmm.
we got back home Sunday night or Monday morning, like about 2:30 in the morning. So it was almost 72 hours from start to finish. And that's a long way to go.
You left at 2:30 in the morning and got home at
Yeah,
2:30.
pretty much. So
Yuck.
but it was just so much fun. And
Yeah.
we loved being there. Love those people.
I saw your posts and I could hear your heart
Yeah.
in them. I mean, I knew it was
Good.
something special, but I didn't know about that long of a history with them. So that's really neat.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah. It has
I'm
been
glad you
neat.
got to do that.
And this weekend we are going to do something that I have been wanting to do since we came here, and we just never have. And so we just made it a point. We're going to do it this time. We're going to go ride the Royal Gorge train. Did y'all ever do that when you lived here?
No, we never did. And we kept hearing about it, and
Mhm.
everybody kept saying, you need to do this.
Yeah.
Well, good. You have to tell us all about it.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we did it when I was a kid. I don't know why I've always had it in my mind that we needed to do it. But when I went to get the tickets, there's this long, disclaimer list that you have to agree and consent. And it was saying things like, I think
don't read it, just agree. Don't read it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, because I don't know if I want to know all of this. Yeah, it says, well, no, that's just a ticket confirmation, but it says this is an old train, basically, and there you may have an accident, and it doesn't have all of the newest safety upgrades, and you have to agree that, you're not going to sue us if something happens.
Yeah.
But
that's comforting.
Yeah, I know. We'll just pray in faith, and we will just enjoy it. But I just saw on the news this morning, they said that the leaves are near peak. So it's a good time to go. I can't wait.
Perfect.
Can't wait.
The best time of year. Oh,
Yeah.
that'll be lovely.
I know. I'm excited.
That makes me think of when we went in to have Carl, we ended up scheduling a C-section for him. And there I am the morning of, my big pregnant belly. I'm laying on my back. There's my big pregnant belly. They put the paperwork on my stomach for me to sign that basically says, if you die on the operating table.
Yeah. I know. Those are some sobering thoughts, aren't they?
What is this? And why are you talking to me about this now?
Yeah. I needed to know this earlier.
That's right.
But there's not much you can do about it at that point.
No, right? And you're already emotional at that moment and hormonal because you're pregnant. And then they have this little speech and you're like, what is this?
Yeah. I always think when you get to that stage, God makes it to where you are so uncomfortable that you are just pretty much willing to do whatever it takes to get it out. And there's two ways out, and neither one of them are too exciting to think about going through.
Not at all. But you're right. You're so ready by that point. It's greater than any trepidation you might have. Let's just do this.
Just get it out.
Do it. Whatever it takes. No, for all of you listening that are pregnant, it's wonderful experience.
Oh, it is.
It's amazing.
Well, it really is. Yeah, it really is. But it's one of those. Biblically, it says that afterwards you'll look back on it and it is all worth it. Yeah. Alyssa is pregnant. She's due the early part of November. So we were
it's
laughing.
Coming up. How's she feeling?
She's feeling pretty good, I think. But I told her she's not allowed to have the baby until we get back from the cruise, because she's due on the 8th. So that's only about a little more than a week after we get home.
Oh no.
So I told her, you're not allowed.
That's not good.
I know. Especially because we're kind of out of pocket and it's hard to reach us when we're there. But anyway.
And this is their second? So I was a week early with our second. I was a week late with our first and a week early.
You just need to stop talking.
Okay.
No more. No, it's okay if you have the baby before we get back, Alyssa. We'll deal with it. But
I got a message from her.
You did?
Yeah, she had run across this Instagram account that she thought that I would really like and sent it to me. It made me feel good that she thought of me.
Yeah. What was it? What kind of food, recipe kind of thing?
Homestead. It was a combination of homesteading and healthy living. So it was like the perfect blend. Yeah. I haven't really had it. I just saw it this morning, so I haven't even had a chance to look at it. But
yeah, she's thoughtful.
It was sweet of her. Yeah, she really is.
Well, we were laughing because she had sent me a picture of Turner. Turner is standing on the coffee table with a broom or a mop in her hand, a toy broom or mop. And on the TV screen above her is the Miss Mary Poppins and the singing of the chimney sweeps, when they're stomping around. And I was telling her that it was so cute and sweet, bittersweet to me in a way, because when Jordan and Jacob were teeny tiny, when they were like 3 and 1, they'd watch that show and they would march, stomp around, and like they'd have something that they'd be hitting on the ground.
Aww.
And so here here's Jake's daughter doing the same thing. But she said she dreamed that the baby was big and that she had dark hair. And I said, yeah, well, Jake, her daddy was 9 pounds and 2 ounces. So it might happen. Anyway, we probably should just quit with that there, with the whole birth weight and all that.
Well, I'll be praying about that. That's coming up. Very exciting.
It is.
Yay.
Yeah, we're excited about it.
And on a much lesser note, much lesser.
Okay.
So we made vanilla ice cream last week, and this week we made Rocky Road.
How was it?
It was so good. It was so good.
Almonds and marshmallows. What else?
Chocolate chips. Ugh. So I found this recipe that was really, really simple. It doesn't even have eggs in it. It was just raw milk, sweetened condensed milk, and vanilla. I think that's all. Was that all there was to it? And you just, raw milk with the cream in it. You just whisk it all up and put it in your freezer. And so when it came out, no. So it was for chocolate milk. So it was all those plus cocoa powder. So when it came out, it had that color of Rocky Road,
dark.
And yes. And I said, we should make this Rocky Road. Well, I already had a jar of marshmallow cream in the pantry. So I swirled some of that into it, and we chopped up some almonds, and I took some semi-sweet chocolate chips and I kind of gave them a rough chop, because I didn't want them to be like in the shape of a chocolate chip. And then we swirled all that in there and stuck it in the freezer and had a bowl the next day, and it was so good. You
waited till the next day?
Yeah, because I made it at night. And so then we swirled.
What's your point? Sean would be like, you are not making me wait until tomorrow for a bowl of this ice cream.
Yeah, it was good. It turned out really good.
Sounds delicious. But you do still have to try the Butterfinger, because that's
definitely.
I'm not even a big Butterfinger fan, but I love that ice cream. I just love that little crunch in there, and that
good. Sounds good to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, guess what? I forgot to set a timer until just now.
Rats.
But I have an idea that we've got a lot to say on this one. So unless you have something else you think we should get started.
No, yeah, we should get started.
Okay.
I always feel like we've been talking for about 3 minutes, and it's been probably 38.
Well, it's probably been a good more than 20.
Okay.
So we'll just move along to our topic. What we're going to talk about today is conflict resolution. And I just thought this would be a good one, especially because it's fresh on my mind after this marriage seminar that we did this weekend. And this is something we talk about every seminar we do. And so I kind of sometimes sit there and zone out a little bit. That's a confession. Maybe I should. Did I just say that?
You did.
And we can kind of zip it. Can you edit maybe?
Anyway. This is unedited, unscripted. Well, you guys don't ever have conflict, so you don't have to pay attention.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just back through that too, because that's not true. But anyway, I didn't zone out this time. I paid a good attention, because it's been a while since we've done one of these, and I just think that conflict resolution is one of those things that I'm not good at, and I suspect that there's a lot of people that are not super great at resolving conflict. And so I thought, let's talk about that, because I have lots of tips that I need to take myself, and I've learned a lot. John he's excels at it, not just with me, but with other people as well, and helping people to resolve conflict successfully and to do it in a way that doesn't make you feel like you've given something up necessarily, although that's not a bad thing, because we all have to give things up. But just to do it in a productive way that is helpful and healing. And so there's just a lot of things that I think are helpful about talking about how to resolve conflict. And so my thoughts are going to focus more on the marriage relationship, and you're going to talk more about sister to sister.
Yeah. Pretty much everything else.
Yeah.
Every other relationship.
Yeah. And I imagine it'll be interesting. We didn't discuss beforehand and compare lists or anything. So it'll be interesting to see how similar they are, because I think there's lots of different ways to fix things, to make things better, and any way that we can do it is going to be helpful. So, we didn't even talk about how we wanted to do this. Do you have like different number, like a list of things, or do you just want to?
Not
do you want to kick it off, or you want me to?
I can if you want
Okay.
to, and then let you end on the marriage one. That'll be great.
Okay.
My
Well, I
mind
have
went,
several things, so
yeah,
if we want to just, however we want to do it, we can just talk.
I really didn't do a list this time. The first thing that came to my mind was a text. And let me pull it up on my phone, but it was Jesus, because
Jesus texted you?
Jesus did not text me.
Sorry. Well, you said it was a text and it was Jesus.
Thank you, Carla.
It was a little disrespectful. Sorry. I apologize. Do we need to resolve some conflict here?
It was Jesus talking in this text, which I'm pulling up on my phone for clarification.
Not a text message, but a Bible text.
Yes, a Bible text. A Bible text. So Matthew 5. Matthew 5-7, Sermon on the Mount. And the fact, for some reason, this sticks to me, the fact that it's the first recorded sermon that we have of Jesus. So it even starts out by saying, he opened his mouth and began to teach. And so when I think about conflict, and you're going to focus in on marriage, but I think about we have conflict with mostly the people that are closest to us, so obviously our spouse, which is what you're going to cover, other family members, coworkers, your church family, it's the people that you're the closest to that's going to play a part in. And then you may also have conflict with people that just don't like you. Jesus refers to them as your enemy, or, those types of situations. Well, he covers all of that just right out of the gate with his very first sermon that we have recorded. And because it starts off with, in Matthew 5, starting at verse 2 and following, he starts off with what we call the Beatitudes. Blessed are those. And so if I were going to list it off as tips, I would say very first thing when conflict comes, and maybe we should just point out right here, I hate conflict. Like, I just would rather avoid it altogether, stick my head in the sand, whatever it takes. It just makes me very uncomfortable. But right out of the gate, he addresses our attitude, knowing it's going to happen. You can try to be as amenable as possible, as not a contradictory person, all these things, but conflict is going to happen, and it's going to come into our lives. And he talks about our attitude. And so if I were to say tip number 1, very first thing, when conflict does come, look at your role and your attitude, because that's where Jesus starts. And when you look at some of those Beatitudes, blessed are the poor in spirit is the very first thing that he says. And that word spirit there really could be replaced with the word attitude or disposition. And so this idea of having a poor in spirit, in attitude or disposition, is this humble disposition. And so when you go down through all those Beatitudes, though, he approves of those who are gentle, willing to yield to the will of another. He approves of those who are merciful, which includes forgiveness, kindness, self-sacrifice and overlooking things. Or in verse 9, the peacemakers. So here we're at odds with someone, the peacemaker is the one trying to find a way to bring peace back into the situation. It's a very proactive mentality. And so these are all character traits that Jesus starts out with from the very beginning. And when I think of conflict, I think about a lot of times we are reactive. The situation has arisen, and I'm thinking about what they've said or what they've done that was wrong, or how they hurt my feelings, or how I disagree with what they think. But Jesus starts out with a focus on ourselves, our attitude. And if I'm working on all of these things, this compassion, gentleness, peacemaker, merciful, poor in spirit things all along, then when conflict does arise, it's going to be much easier to handle. It's going to,
hopefully part of your nature.
Maybe easy is the wrong word to use.
Yeah.
But
Not
I
as
will
painful.
handle it better. I will handle it better, not just for my good, but for everybody involved. And so, maybe the first thing is your role and your attitude and all of that. Because if we wait until the conflict happens to start working on these things, it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to be a little bit backwards.
Yeah.
And so another thought with this is that when those conflicts do happen, we learn things about ourselves. And, the things that are much easier to do when everything is smooth, it's easier to put other people first when they agree with me.
Yeah.
When we're on the same page and we have the same attitude and the same ideas. But when that conflict arises, then it gets much harder. And I learn things about myself. Those we probably mentioned on here before, those little things bubble to the surface, and I get a chance to see them, and I get a chance to refine them or give into them and act out in a way that's going to make the conflict even worse. So my tip number one from the very beginning is, what is my role? How is my attitude? And what kind of attitude does Jesus want me to have in this situation? And then the second thing we see in the Sermon on the Mount is he talks about our reaction when it comes. And I love how Jesus handles both situations. You're going to have conflict with people who are fellow Christians, a brother or a sister. You're going to have conflict from people out in the world or your enemy. And he talks about how to respond, how to react in those situations. And he's very specific that there will be people problems. And he talks about those who persecute you. So you think about all the different ways that this might be, for us, it could be verbal, physical, emotional, social, all these different ways. He talks about people problems when somebody insults you. Some versions say revile you. And that is to reproach without justification, to mock or to disgrace. And the word itself carries with it the idea of using your teeth. So sometimes we use that phrase, they just want to sink their teeth into you. It's a very harsh word. So sometimes people treat you that way. He talks about there will be times when people falsely say all kinds of evil against you, false accusations, spreading gossip, things about you that's just not true. We've all experienced that. And so then he goes into how we respond when those things this is people, it will happen. Here's what you're supposed to do about it. And he says something just completely unexpected. Yeah. In verse 12, he says, rejoice and be glad. Yeah. So
kind of like James.
Yeah, rejoice and be glad. And normally I would think, I don't know what your initial reaction is in that kind of situation, but mine typically would fall along the lines of hurt, anger.
Not rejoicing.
Yeah, not much rejoicing or gladness there. And he says, because your reward in heaven is great, you must be doing something right. You're living right. You're experiencing this. Mentions even the prophets experience this. But so starting with yourself, your attitude and your response, and it's in that context that he goes into the verses that we're all familiar with. You're the light of the world. You're the salt of the earth. This is how we shine. This is how we cause others to see God. Yeah. And it's not just, I'm going to do these good works that I feel like doing so that people can see God and glorify him. It's really how I respond to conflict, because people are watching. And everybody wants to respond the same way. Everybody does, Christian and non-Christian alike. But how are you going to respond? And when you respond differently, dramatically differently, you're the salt of the earth, you're the light of the world, and people see God.
And that takes such self-control. But I'm thinking, is there anything that makes you stand out more than handling yourself in a charged situation, handling yourself in a way that honors God? I mean, I can't think of anything that would be more I hesitate to use the word impressive, but that's kind of what I'm thinking, that people would see, oh, this person's different. How is it that somebody can say that kind of thing to them, or somebody can treat them so disrespectfully, or whatever it is, and yet they respond in a way that is not harsh or critical, or flares up or whatever. So yeah, that's a great point.
Well, and you can probably recall a situation when you did witness that, and like you say, it just sticks with you. And
Yeah.
when you see that, not only, I feel like I kind of pat myself on the back if I don't retaliate.
Yeah.
If I have enough self-control that I'm biting my tongue and I'm not saying what I want to say, good job, Kathy Pollard, and way to go for not retaliating. But when you see somebody that responds in such a way that they respond with compassion and grace and gentleness, or even kindness, it really does stand out, because it goes so against human nature. And so then he talks about the two different situations when somebody has something against you and when you have something against somebody else. So, the situation in worship, if you remember that somebody has some ought against you, leave your gift at the altar and go and be reconciled with that person. And a lot of times we get that a little bit mixed up. I can't even worship because I'm so mad at so-and-so for doing this or whatever. But that's not what he's talking about. He's saying somebody's angry at you.
Yeah.
You're the one that's caused the offense. And so your actions caused it. You hurt someone. And the verse says, be reconciled. And that means not just making peace, but renewing a friendship, restoring a relationship. It's not just, what can we do to get over this and smooth it so it doesn't create a greater rift? It's, what can I do to restore this relationship? And that's that kind of second mile approach again. So that would be the next tip is, our attitude and response, but then what is the goal? And remembering the goal is reconciliation and taking steps to restore friendship, restore peace and relationship. Our goal is not to defend ourselves, to excuse ourselves, and I know that I'm really good at that. I've got my argument and all my main points lined out in my defense. But that's not the goal. And that's not an apology. And so the goal is, I'm going to do whatever I can to make true peace and restore this relationship. And then the second part of that is, what about when I'm the one that's angry and I'm the one that's been hurt? The conflict has arisen from somebody else has done something or said something that's hurt my feelings or created strife or whatever it might be. And he gives an illustration here. And the example the response in this case is, so the first one was make reconciliation. This one is make friends quickly. Make friends quickly. So they're the guilty party in my eyes. They're the ones that have said or done something, but Jesus says my response, it's my responsibility to make friends quickly. And I can already see the selfish worldly tendency in me to go, but wait a second. It's, why is this my responsibility when they're the ones that did it? They started it. So again, it's reconciliation. And if someone has offended you, Jesus understands that we want to respond in anger, or that maybe that's what we're trying to work through. But he wants us to take steps again to restore that friendship, even though we're not the ones that caused the rift in the first place.
And if you think about that, that's what God did for us. We're the ones that sinned against him. And yet he's the one that gave us the gift. He's the one that reached out to make things, to make a way for us to have a relationship. And he gave us the gift. And that's just so against how we do things as humans. We, like you said, we think it's their fault. They're the ones that have sinned against me, and I'm going to just wait it out. And I'm going to make sure that they know that I'm upset with them for doing whatever it is that they did. But that's a hard thing to do, to go and make things right, even when you're not the one responsible for what went wrong.
Well, it just I think of it as almost this maturity level. Where am I on this spiritual maturity level to, maybe that lower level, if you want to call it that, would be exactly what you've been saying. I'm going to let them know I'm upset.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that looks like me distancing myself from them. I'm just going to give them the cold shoulder. I might not say anything ugly, but I'm also not going to be warm and friendly to them. I'm going to give them the cold shoulder. I'm going to keep my distance. And then, or maybe the next level is, okay, I'm not going to give them the cold shoulder. I'm going to pretend. I'm going to go out and talk to him like I'm supposed to. I'm going to pretend like everything's okay. But in my heart, I'm still holding that grudge, and I think probably that's where I land most of the time. I know what I'm supposed to do. So I just kind of go through the motions, but in my heart, I'm holding that grudge. But that Christ level is no, you reach out, you take steps, you go to them. So what does that look like? What does that look like? And I think people in our selfish side would say, that's not fair. That's not right. That's ridiculous. That's radical.
Yeah.
But what does that look like? That looks like me humbling myself and wanting the reconciliation, not the burden of, well, this is what I have to do. It's seeing them the way God does and wanting that reconciliation in my heart, so that I go, maybe there are tears involved. Maybe there's a hug involved. Maybe there's I am so sorry that this has happened between us, and I do not want this between us. I love you. Does it look like that? And our reaction to that whole, I don't think I could do that. It comes all back around to that trusting God. He knows what's best. And he knows that on the other side of that is the blessing for both parties, not just them with the grace and forgiveness and compassion that we're extending, but for ourselves. And the blessing that'll come on the other side of that, but also the effect on the kingdom. If it's in the church, can you imagine the effect that would have on the Lord's church if we all responded that way? Instead of going around and trying to gain sympathy from other people. Don't we see that a lot?
Yeah.
When someone's hurt my feelings, I go to my little posse and me, and garner that sympathy, and oh man, I can't believe they did that to you. And it might make me feel good in the moment, but what is it doing to the church? It's creating strife in the body of Christ and hurting him.
Yeah.
So
the immature part of me, I think, and I've probably said this before, if I don't act like, if I treat them like nothing's wrong, they're not going to know that something's wrong. It's almost like I have to treat them with the cold shoulder so that they'll know that there's something wrong. But that's just so dumb. It's just so dumb, because if there is something wrong, then I need to go and talk to them. And it's like, both of us, we hate conflict. And so it feels like, just voluntarily opening the door for conflict, but it doesn't have to be that way. If we humble ourselves, even if it's something that they legitimately have done that's wrong and sinned against us, if we humble ourselves and go and say, and this is not something I've ever done, so it's not like I'm saying do what I've done, but if we were to say, this is something that's really been bothering me, and I know that I played a part in this, but I want things to be right between us. And so what can I do to make this right? And this is something that you did, but I want things to be right. And why do we not do that? It's uncomfortable. We don't like conflict, but if we handled it the right way, I don't think there would be conflict, because we can modify other people's behavior by our own, and we can defuse situations by our own behavior. And again, it's not something I'm great at, but I've seen it happen, and I'm sure you have too.
Well, and I don't want to jump ahead because you're going to talk about marriage, but it does make me think of those times when Neil catches me off guard, and right in the middle of conflict, if sometimes he has just stopped and said, I just want to hug you.
Yeah.
Or he'll just reach out and
Do you
press
take
me
it
to
or
him
do
with a
you
hug.
bristle?
Typically I bristle,
Me too.
but it still touches me. I can't help it.
Yeah.
And especially after the fact, when I look back on how he handled that. And you have to know that you'll probably get that same reaction from other people. If you act in a way that is that unexpected, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to approach you with, excuse me, love and kindness and, genuinely, not self-righteously.
Right.
Of course,
Exactly.
of course. But can you just imagine their reaction, so caught off guard that their heart just melts? I mean, how can it not?
Right.
And think about those people that that they don't play games. They don't play mental games with you. You don't have to try and figure them out. Yeah, well, they're saying this, but are they just saying this because they want me to think? I hate that.
Yeah.
But people that you never have to worry about what they're saying because they mean what they say and they're not playing mental games with you, and you respect people like that. And so I think
I
that,
want to say one thing here though,
yeah, go ahead.
because I've seen this. You said, how can their heart not melt? And I think 99% of the time that's true, but there is that 1% that I've seen. People are hard-hearted and they want to hang on to whatever grudge they're holding and they want to be angry. And so their heart is not going to melt if you try to do that. But that doesn't mean that you're not supposed to do what you're supposed to do. Over and over again, I see all I can control is me. I can't control. We can try to modify behavior by behaving the right way ourselves. But I guess I'm just saying that there may be occasions when we do everything right, everything that we're supposed to do and approach conflict the right way. And it doesn't get the response we're looking for, but that's okay. I mean, what the goal is to do what God tells us to do. The goal is not necessarily for us to just feel better, all better. Everything's all better. So if we do what we're supposed to do and do it with pure motives and the right heart, and it's not received well, that's between them and God. And I even hesitate to say that because it's almost like I'm saying that's their problem. And I don't mean that. I just mean that really is between them and God. And we still have to do what we have to do. So that's just my 2 cents worth about that.
No, and I'm glad you brought that up because that is so true. I just think that sometimes we think we've done all that we can, but have we really?
Yeah. No.
Have we really? Have we really humbled ourselves and gone to them with genuine love, that they can see on our face? And I know you mentioned those that are hard-hearted, but we should give them every chance to melt their heart. We should make it hard for them to be hard-hearted, by our attitude toward them. And I think sometimes that we maybe excuse ourselves. Well, I tried.
Yeah.
But
half-hearted.
What did that look like? Yeah. What did that look like? And did you throw in some excuses in there also? And did you have a look on your face? Did you really? So it makes me think about that passage about heaping coals, and I sat in a class one time. It was probably Denny Petrillo, but I don't know who it was that was explaining how we misunderstand that passage because we think, I'm just going to be so nice to them. It's going to heap coals on their head.
Like terrible.
It's going to burn them. I'm going to burn them with kindness, and that's not the objective. The objective is not to make them hurt with your kindness. That makes no sense at all. But it was supposed to have, and I wish I had looked this up ahead of time, but I didn't think about it till now, but it was supposed to have some kind of symbolism about repentance or a change of heart. That heaping coals, was it an old Egyptian thing or something like that?
Well, as I understand it, it had to do with when it's a metal term, when you're heating up the metals, it gets rid of the impurities, and so it softens. And so really what that heaping coals of fire is you're softening their heart. You're making them more receptive towards you and towards the truth and towards forgiveness and making things right. So that's at least how I've understood it.
When they're creating the conflict and they're acting out and they're expecting you to respond in kind, but you don't, and in fact you respond in kindness,
right,
then you're softening their heart. You're making it easier for them to repent in their way and do the right thing.
Right.
The way they're supposed to. That's what that's all about. But excuse me. The other thing we learn is that Jesus holds us accountable in all of this. That's what I keep seeing in the Sermon on the Mount. In all of these situations, you know, he explains, oh dear, I'm so sorry. I know that sounds terrible.
You're fine.
Yeah. He explains that all these things are going to happen and doesn't talk about them. You know, it's strictly for us to learn from. This is my attitude, my response, and responsibility. And Jesus holds me accountable for my part in it. And so that's what I focus on, not theirs.
Right.
And like you said, let their actions and attitude be between them and God, but I'm going to do my part and to resolve this conflict in every way that I can, which involves restoring a relationship if possible. So I was thinking about how, you know, especially when you think about women like Yodi and Syntyche in Philippians 4, they had this strife between them that was affecting the attitude and the temperature of the congregation. And, you know, you can think about, yeah, there are women that can get caught up in strife. Yeah, there are women that can affect the flavor of the congregation by their attitude and strife. But if I'm reading and studying what Jesus is saying here, the question is, yeah, I'm a woman that can get caught up in strife. And I am that woman that can affect the flavor and temperature of my local church family.
Yeah.
So what am I doing there in all situations of conflict? So even when it's difficult, when I do strive, obviously probably not going to do it perfectly, but when I am striving to handle it in these ways, then the church will be affected. It'll help create that culture for other people to respond the right way in conflict. It'll bring joy into the body of Christ. It'll help with that others mindset that we read about in Philippians. And then, of course, the behavior is God approved, and the reward in heaven will be great, no matter how it turns out down here.
Yeah. That's great. It's all about self in a good way. You know, it's not selfish, but it's all about how, you know, all we can do is control ourselves. In some ways it does, it affects other people, but if we're doing what we're supposed to do, then that's what God expects. I remember we would tell our kids that, you know, it doesn't matter what he's doing. You do what I told you to do. And that's kind of what God is saying to us. You leave them to me and you do what you're supposed to do. It's pretty simple.
When it happens, we act so surprised, you know, like this is so unexpected. I can't believe that. I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you said that. I can't believe this just happened. And when we share it, can you believe, you know, and like it catches us off guard. But right out of the gate, Jesus is saying conflict is going to happen. We're all people. We're all flawed. We're weak. Sometimes we have bad days and we're selfish and we're going to say thoughtless things or hurt people.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it was unintentional. Maybe it was intentional. We're going to have enemies. We're going to have people who don't, these things are going to have, we're going to have people who don't like us.
Yeah. I just can't believe that though.
I can't either. So
what's wrong with them?
Don't be surprised that it's happened. You know, I think sometimes we kind of use that as that nursing the wound. Yeah, I would expect this from somebody out in the world, but from a fellow Christian, you know, that just hurts more. That's just, well, but it's going to happen because we're all human. And it's like Jesus is reminding us of our own weaknesses. There are going to be times when you're the one that offended somebody else. So humble yourself here. Be merciful, be compassionate. Don't be surprised that it happened. Just take a step back, find out your role and your attitude in it, and take steps toward reconciliation.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Stepping on my toes.
Yeah, mine too.
I mean, you think about family members and why don't we do this? Because it seems like a pretty easy solution, you know, go to them, whatever. But when it's something that is kind of old, like an old wound, then you have to think about well, okay, maybe they're beyond it. Maybe they're past it. What if I go to them and say this and this and this, and they're like, huh? What are you talking about? I didn't think anything of that. And then you've just created a bad situation. I mean, there's all kinds of things that come up in my mind about what if, what if, what if. But if it's something that's taking up space in my heart and in my head, and it's really, it has really affected me, then I need to do something about it. And I don't want to, because it's painful.
Yeah, did you
Did
hear
you hear
that?
something?
That was my phone telling me that lightning has been detected in my area.
Oh,
We're in the
okay.
middle of a thunderstorm here. That's why it's kind of overcast. And
Okay.
when I think about these kinds of things, I see where I am very clearly when it comes to what I struggle with. And for me, it's feeling like it something needs to be said to somebody about the unfairness of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel better. Like if I'm talking to Neil, or you,
Just get it off your chest, you mean?
just yeah,
Okay.
not just to get it off my chest, but almost in that moment, somebody comes up and says something to me ridiculous or thoughtless. It's going to happen. It has happened, and I've done that to other people. But I feel like I come up with creative ways to share that somehow with someone. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
If I could just let somebody know that this was not fair and here's why.
Mm-hmm.
If I could just let my side of the story be heard, it doesn't ever need to go to that person. Then I'm fine. And
Well, some of that's processing out loud, don't you think?
well,
And you
I
talk yourself
appreciate
out of it.
sometimes, and sometimes it's just I need people to see how unfair this was.
Well, you need somebody to pat you
Yeah.
on the back.
I'm just acknowledging that part of me that feels like, even though eventually I know that with them I may say or act the right way, I haven't if I felt the need to make sure somebody knows though
Yeah.
that was not right or unfair or whatever it is. When I should be okay with just God knowing.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Well,
I'm
and
not
what?
saying there's never an occasion when you need somebody.
Yeah.
But most of the time, truth be told, a lot of these things are petty. A lot of conflict arises from petty personality things that we all have
Absolutely.
attitude problem or
Mm-hmm.
pride problem or whatever it is. Most of the time, it's just something petty. And I should be able to just let it go, never voice it, never see the light of day. It's between me and God. And I should be
Yeah.
okay with that.
Yeah. Well, I think we can work on that. I mean, I think that's something that I know I need to do. I need to just, and I think I've grown in that over the years. Learned, what's really important, that's just not important. And John is really good sometimes to point out, is that a matter of sin or is that a matter of opinion?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not a matter of sin, then it's a little easier, I think, for me to say, okay, whatever. But here's another thing, and I guess I'm opening a can of worms, and when we're supposed to be kind of trying to give some answers. But I mean, it's for us to think about, talk about. If it's not something that's against us, but maybe it's against the church, or it's something that we think is really was said that was unwise, and that it's and these are things that you and I have talked about. Do we have the responsibility to go to that person and say, look, you really shouldn't be talking about this, or you shouldn't be doing this, or that gets into an area where I don't know, because it wasn't a sin against me, but it's something that has bothered me. But if I were to just, out of the blue, so something on social media,
Yeah.
if I were to just drop them a message and say, hey, this is really not a wise thing for you to let go out there in the social media world. And I don't know the answer to that. I think, but I think maybe part of what we do with our podcast is try to bring to light some things that are not wise, or would be a better way to handle this. Or I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but I just think there's those gray areas where we don't always know how to handle. And and again, I guess we just do what we can do, and try to affect our own behavior and modify others' behavior by how we handle ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and really, you brought up, I didn't, honestly, when I was thinking about this, I wasn't even thinking about social media, but there is a lot of conflict on social media. And um, I just, if you see somebody post something that brings reproach on the name of Christ,
Hmm.
obviously we want to stand up for our Savior.
Yeah.
But does that look like a comment on social media? Probably not.
Hmm. It just inflames a lot of times.
It does. And I don't personally believe that making comments or statements on social media is ever, Ollie, hush, ever the right way to resolve conflict. I think
Hmm.
that's probably a face-to-face conversation,
Yeah.
or maybe a private message,
Hmm.
but there is definitely a lot of conflict on social media.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even think about that either, but that would be a whole different topic. Maybe we shouldn't
Mhm.
even go there.
Mm.
Well, good points.
Well, the last thing
Practical.
I just wanted to say was maybe even before, or maybe up there with considering our role and attitude in it, is this really something that I need to be offended about in the first place?
Hmm.
Is this something that's even worthy of being called conflict? Because don't take something tiny and assume something was
Yeah.
meant. If it wasn't said, don't assume what was meant, kind of a
Right.
thing. And I think I've already shared this on here, but it reminds me of, years ago when I was upset with somebody and I took it to my dad, and he took me to that verse that said, it's to your glory to overlook a
Hmm.
transgression.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can just stop at the very beginning of it and say, does this really need to take up residence in my heart in the
Hmm.
beginning? Or can I just let it go
Yeah.
and give them
Am
the
I being
benefit of the
completely
doubt?
ridiculous?
Yeah, just give them the benefit of the doubt or assume the best. Or you know what? Not a big deal.
Hmm.
I can just let that go and go
Hmm.
on with my life and everything will be completely fine.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely realize that there are just some things that it takes up all this space in your heart, and it's not worth it. It's just not worth it.
Yeah,
You have a
always.
visitor?
Well, I don't know. It could be just Leon walking across because sometimes she triggers the ring and then Ollie thinks somebody's at the door.
Mm. Well, let us know if we need to call the cops if there's
Yeah.
somebody wandering
Oh,
around your
there
yard.
is somebody. It could just be a delivery. It was a delivery. We're good.
Okay, we'll just go with that. It's a
Yeah,
delivery.
it's a delivery.
Okay. Well, so
Sorry for
is
that interruption there.
no, you're fine. So is that kind of where you want to end yours and move on
Uh,
to marriage?
yes, I think so. Let's get down to the real nitty gritty.
The painful stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and I have
Wait,
lots
let
of
me go put my steel toed boots on real quick.
no, I already just making notes from this was kind of painful,
Oh.
but it was fresh on my mind because of, we went through it with the marriage seminar, and it's just probably one of the hardest things in a marriage is conflict, and how do we handle it, because we come from different backgrounds. Maybe one of you comes from a family who didn't ever you didn't ever see any conflict. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
everyone stuffed it, or maybe your parents handled it from behind closed doors. This is kind
Mm-hmm.
of us, because my mom and dad, I saw conflict, and it was never anything big at all, but I
Mm-hmm.
I knew that they had conflict because everyone does. And John, his mom and dad always handled everything behind closed doors. And so when we had our first conflict, I think John thought that the world was coming to an end and that everything was just it was terrible. But I was
Mm-hmm.
like, huh? This is what happens when you're married. And so I'm pretty sure our kids knew that that was normal, because we had conflict in front of them. Not that there's never any excuse for a knockdown, drag out, yelling, screaming, physical.
Mm-hmm.
None of that has any place in a Christian's marriage. But conflict is going to happen because you're two different people and you have two different ideas of how things should be handled. And so, how do you come to a resolution of how best to do things? And I don't, making these notes, I didn't even go into the whole, the roles in a marriage and how the husband is the head of the home. I just kind of assumed that everyone knows that, even though some who are listening may not. There's
Mm-hmm.
scriptural authority that the husband is the head of the home, and he's the one that guides, leads the home, and makes the decisions, but in a good marriage relationship. He's always going to take into account what his wife, how she feels, and he's going to know her and he's going to consult her. So it's not a dictatorship. It's a partnership. But as with any organization, there is a role for every person. So that's just a little side note. But when I was making some notes about this, the first thing that I thought of with the marriage, with conflict in a marriage, is to prevent it from happening in the first place. And I think that's kind of where you started out too, in a way, with talking about Matthew 5, is how all of those things you talked about, if we put those into place, that would prevent conflict from happening. But I just kept thinking in my own life, how many wasted days have I caused because I chose to get upset about something when it was really stupid. Sorry, that dumb word, stupid, but it really, really was. And when I would look back on it, I would think, why, there was 4 days of me giving him the silent treatment or being upset about something, him wondering what was wrong, or, vice versa, whatever it was. Usually it's me doing the silent treatment because he doesn't do that. He can't stand it. But and it all goes back to pride. If we could just kill that pride that's in our hearts and our minds and make a choice. And that's a word that kept coming up over and over when I was making notes. It was choose, make a choice. Because this whole topic, you can choose to get upset, or you can choose to overlook, like your dad said, it's the glory to overlook an offense. You choose to do that. But if we kill that pride, so how do we recognize pride taking up residence and affecting our marriages and conflict? And I started thinking, when's the last time I voluntarily apologized for something? When's the last time I felt upset about something and yet I stood back and went, what's my part in this? And then me going to John and saying, you know what, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. I should have handled this differently. And that doesn't happen very often, I have to say, and I'm ashamed to say. But I think we can also recognize pride when in our hearts, when maybe there are times that we're controlled by impulsive anger. And that really doesn't have any place in a Christian marriage or in any marriage. But if we just say, if we look back on it and just say, well, I was mad. And if that's what's causing us to do and say things, that's just wrong and we shouldn't do it. So preventing it, this is what I was thinking. Preventing it is by killing pride in our hearts. Another way of preventing it is to realize that anger, again, has no real place in a marriage relationship. It's going to happen, but we don't have to give it a place. And then I thought of these words that came up, kind of a synonym with anger would be bitterness. If we are punitive, if we're belligerent about things, if we say words that are damaging, if we're petulant, that's an attractive word, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a horrible word.
I know, petulant, but we've seen it, and I've seen it myself. I've got to plug my computer in. But all of those things come out in anger. And if we can prevent that anger by having self-control and all those things that you were talking about in Matthew 5, that will prevent conflict in the first place. And then just the solution to this is in Ephesians 4. And when you look down through those verses, I'm going to pull it up so I can look at it while I'm talking. Ephesians 4 and about verse 18 and following is talking about people who are excluded from the life of God. And that's not a place that I want to be, but they're excluded because of the hardness of their heart. And I mean, if that's not me sometimes when I'm hard-hearted, when I just asked you a minute ago about the hug, because John, a lot of times if we're in the middle of a conflict, he'll want to hug me. And I don't want to hug. And I know we've talked about this before, but I need that space. I need, maybe is it because I'm afraid that he'll soften my heart and I want to be hard-hearted? And I think it is sometimes. And I
It's
just think,
because
how ridiculous am
he
I?
needs to understand just how upset you really are.
Yeah. And I think he knows because the way I'm acting. But that whole context, in Ephesians 4, in verse 26, it says, be angry, but don't sin. And then verse 27, this is a big one. Don't give the devil an opportunity. And I've heard it said, don't let the devil get his nose under your tent. And I don't know where that came from. But if he just gets a little part in underneath, slides in, and am I letting him do that by not preventing conflict? And when I say prevent conflict, I don't mean stuff it or just be a doormat or let it go anytime, because sometimes there are things that really are wrong that we have to address and have to get past. But anyway, don't give the devil an opportunity. Verse 29 says, let no unwholesome word come out of your mouth. And I looked at that word, and then there's a little footnote that says no rotten words. So I thought, there's another visual, a rotten word. Instead, only use edifying words or grace-filled words. And then verse 31, put away bitterness and wrath and anger. Just take that off like clothing, take it off. And then verse 32, put on, the kindness and be tenderhearted and forgiving. And that tenderheartedness is compassion and mercy. A lot of times those are things that just are obviously not natural when you're having conflict. You don't want to feel compassion. You want to feel righteous indignation. But, when I look at that context, all that's about me. That I'm the one that I need to put aside the old man. I need to not be sinfully angry. I need to not let these rotten words come out of my mouth. So when I think of how we tend to say, well, what about them? What about them? Well, this is about you. It's like you were saying with Matthew 5. These things are about me and how I control myself. And again, thinking about when he doesn't respond like I want him to respond, what does that mean? Do I get to go back to being angry, being hateful, being petulant, petty, all those things? And no, it doesn't mean that. It means that I just keep doing the next right thing.
It's like saying, I tried that, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you just quit trying? No, you just do the next right thing.
Can we pick and choose on that list in Ephesians 4? Because
good luck with that.
It's a lot easier for me to not say the rotten words than it is to then say the words that build up and, bring about goodness in that situation. Because like you, I tend to just do the silent treatment.
Yeah. Well, just all of those things, if it seems so simple, and it is pretty simple in the mind, logically, but emotionally, the thought of me doing all of these things will prevent conflict. Then I tend to think, well, is he going to do all those things?
Yeah.
No.
Or is this going to be one-sided?
And that doesn't feel fair and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff.
And you know what happens when you make that determination, going forward, this is how I'm going to react. This is how I'm going to handle conflict. I'm going to Ephesians 4 this thing all over the place. It's like the next day you have the biggest doozy and you're like, but.
Yeah. So tomorrow we need to be on the lookout. Yeah. We're going to go ride the train at the Royal Gorge while I'm looking out the window this way and he's looking out the other way. No.
He'll say, are you just enjoying the scenery or are you upset at something?
Yeah. It's fine. I'm fine. It's fine.
Just looking out the window.
Sending our messages, our very effective messages. But anyway, just thinking about preventing conflict also made me think about just laugh. There's another choice. And there have been times, and one of them not too long ago, when the ridiculousness of what we were arguing about, and I don't know, there was something about the situation that I thought I wanted to laugh, but then I didn't want to laugh because, like you said, I wanted him to know that I was upset.
Right.
But then I thought, this is a choice here. This is a crossroads, right? I'm at a crossroads. I can go this way or I can go that way. And this way leads to 4 days of the silent treatment and misery and not communicating. And who knows what God will put in our path good that we can do that we're not going to do because I'm mad and being like a baby. Or I can laugh and I can go this way and it will be done. And we can hug and I'll say, I'm sorry, I'm being a child. And he'll, because he is a good man, will say, I'm sorry for whatever. I can choose to laugh. And that was something that I just want to side note here. When we do these marriage seminars and when I have done classes before on the family, and I talk about if you would do this, then he will do that. And I've come to find out that that's not always true, because not every man is John or Neil or lots of other good men out there. There's, for some women, I know it's a harder row to hoe, and it's, maybe their husband isn't a Christian. Maybe he doesn't have a great mindset. Maybe, he's got his own growing to do, but I think we still have to do the right thing. And still we can, 1 Peter 3, we can win them by the way that we live our lives. And it's not going to be like that. I can't snap. It's not going to be just like that. It's going to be a long way to go and hard work, but the payoff will be huge if we'll stick with it. So I just don't want people to think that it's an automatic, because it's not always an automatic, because for whatever reason, not everybody responds the way that God wants them to, because they have their own heart issues they need to work on. So just do the right thing yourself. So anyway.
All right. I really love this one. I'm kind of wanting to just marinate it a little bit here. And I was just thinking about this idea of responding with joy or laughter. Again, it's another one of those unexpected reactions. But imagine how that would just diffuse the situation most of the time. Or over time, maybe that first time it doesn't get the reaction you expect. But over time, it creates a culture. What's your conflict culture in your marriage? Because isn't it so easy to create a bad pattern, a bad habit? This is how we've handled culture, and so this is how we continue to handle. This is how we started handling it, and it's just growing and getting bigger and worse.
Yeah.
Or you can create a different conflict culture in your marriage, and with these types of steps. But learning to laugh, we know that learning to laugh at ourselves is important when we mess up. It's important to just be able to let it go, laugh it off, and we understand that for our own well-being. But maybe we need to try harder to extend that grace to our husband also. Learn to just laugh it off and not make that big of a deal out of it. That's good. I like that one.
Those TV shows when someone's having an epiphany and everything else around them stops and they're going, And I think of this situation there, because okay, everything stops. Give me a second. I need to think about this. I need to consider this road or this road. And if you can look down the road, I think it makes a difference. It helps you to, I don't want to go there. I really don't want to take that road. I want to go a different way. And so it takes swallowing your pride, and it takes my next little note that I wrote myself, not taking ourselves too seriously, to be able to take that laughing road. But I think we just save ourselves so much heartache and conflict. And I tend to think about John and I, we have empty nests now, but there's a lot of women, I think, out there who are listening, I hope, who have children at home still, and they are watching to see how you handle conflict. And are you laughing at things, or are you getting mad at things? And what you do now is affecting how your children will handle their own families. And that's a serious thing. I think I have regrets on how there were ways that I handled things that I know my boys saw in me. And, I hope that they don't respond the same way to their wives like I did to John. We pass things down, and it's kind of like that grown-up craziness. Children shouldn't have to bear the burden of grown-up craziness. So we talked about a couple of weeks ago. This is one of those things. How we handle conflict can be grown-up craziness. And if it's not something that we handle the right way, then our kids it's gonna be a burden that they're gonna bear in their own families. So,
Well, and I think about those studies that have been done about laughter, how it relieves tension and lifts your mood. But with children in the scenario, like you were saying, and conflict is taking place between the parents, inserting some laughter would relieve the tension for your children also. I mean, it would just diffuse the situation and change the whole atmosphere.
Right.
In such a much better way.
And, I think about the little hearts that are out there that are worried about their parents, worried about their, they wouldn't be able to articulate it, but they're worried about the peace in their homes. And, what's mom and dad, what are they going to do next? And I think if we can put these things into practice and prevent conflict by laughing, choosing, that word just keeps coming up. Make a choice. It's up to us. God's given us all the tools that we need. We just have to put aside that pride and put aside the anger and put aside the hard feelings and choose to make things better. So that's kind of my first point, is to prevent conflict in the first place. But then there's just the reality that because we're human, there's going to be conflict. So what do we do when it comes? And some of these things come from there's a book, a download on our website, biblepassages.net. And there's a tab that I can't remember. I think it says content or something like that. But if you pull it down, it says marriage. And this book is downloadable. It's free. It's just got a lot of material that we use in marriage seminars. So if anybody wanted to go there and download that book, they're welcome to. But so some of these points come from that. Some of them are just from other places. But the first one is to, I know I've talked about this before, but I think it's good to bring it up again, to think about what's behind the anger and what's motivating it, and to keep calm. That's kind of an old buzzword or a little buzz phrase, to keep calm and carry on. But step back, take a breath, before you say something you're going to regret, just take a step back. Proverbs 15:1, a gentle answer or a soft answer turns away wrath. I can't remember how the New American, gentle answer versus harsh words. Then verse 4, a soothing tongue is a tree of life. But what's behind the anger? Is it, there could be any number of things. Selfishness, that could just be that we are not being thoughtful about what we're saying. We may be having a bad day. There could be anything, but there's that giving each other a gift. That's not an anagram. What is it? An acronym? Is that the right word?
I think so.
When you use the first letter, give your spouse a gift. And this has been very helpful for me to step back and think, okay, what's motivating my anger, or what's motivating his anger? And the guilt, that GIFT, G stands for guilt. Is there something in someone's past that when you say something, just for example, if you pick up your husband's phone to look at a text or to see something, and he gets real possessive and, gets angry because you're looking at his phone, which I really think there should never be any secrets. John and I look at each other's phones all the time. But if he gets mad at your picking up his phone, maybe the reason he's mad is because he's feeling guilty because there's something on there, but it may not be current. It may have been from the past, and you've gotten past that, but it's just that old feeling that comes up. So guilt can make someone respond in anger. Then the I stands for inferiority. This is something that I struggle with, because I don't like feeling like someone's patting me on the head. You ever had that feeling? Where someone, they're, oh, that's cute, and they pat you on the head, and then you feel like a child. And I don't like that feeling. And I tend to, for whatever reason, I feel inferior about things. And
don't patronize me.
Exactly. And that tends to make me feel angry, even though it's really inferiority that's motivating that. Then the F stands for fear. So an example of this, John and I have had some conflict when he doesn't answer my texts. I tend to, I have my phone too much with me. I know it's too much, but if it dings or whatever, I'll look at it. you're better about setting that aside. John doesn't like that. He doesn't like ding, 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 ding. If he's trying to work on something, he's much better at focusing, and he has to set it aside. But if he doesn't answer me, then my mind starts going, what's going on is, because of what happened to him several years ago, I think he's laying dead somewhere. Or what if he's having a heart, his heart's doing something and nobody knows. And, that's where my mind goes. So that fear makes me react in anger. And this has been an ongoing thing. So that's an example of that. And then the T stands for trauma. So if there's some kind of trauma in your past, a traumatic event, that whatever behavior that's going on brings up that feeling of trauma, and it makes you mad. So I think it's very helpful to know what motivates anger, because it just kind of helps when you take a step back and go, oh, I see, I understand. And that tends to diffuse the situation. So again, choose to take a breath, take a step back, think, okay, what's behind this? So any thoughts on that before I move on?
Well, and the ones that you listed seem to be kind of big deals. And sometimes it's just trivial things that could be behind it. You've had a long day. He's had a long day. He's tired, or there's a deadline, or there's a little bit of extra stress because of something. Or, sometimes in the conflict, it's brought on by these sort of outside pressures and stresses and financial difficulties, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And you can kind of take a step back and say, what's at the root of this right now? This tension between us. Neil and I use the word clacking because we're not clicking. So we're clacking.
I heard you say that.
Yeah. So why are we clacking? And sometimes if you can kind of take a step back and acknowledge, we're exhausted, and give him grace, give each other grace, step back. Sometimes it might just be some little minor thing that's behind the anger, and you just kind of get caught up in it.
Yeah. It ought to be GIFTT, and that last T should be tired.
Yeah.
Because I know when I'm tired, sometimes I just feel myself. I just need to go to bed. I'll be better tomorrow. I'm sorry I'm being a baby, but I need to go to bed.
Are you hangry?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm a little hangry right now.
Women, are you hormonal? There are,
it's
not to use it as an excuse, but is that contributing to what's going on right now? Take a step back, do what you need to do.
Yeah. And you know what? It really is a thing. And when no one likes it when your husband says, is it your time of the month?
Yeah.
But you know what? It really is a thing, and it does affect you. So if it is, then recognize it and don't give it space, just understand it's going to be, like you said, don't use it as an excuse, but understand that it does affect you. So,
well, I was going to say, if it bothers you when they ask about it in the first place, then make sure you don't ever pull it out as an excuse, because you can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
You can't just use it when you want to, but then he's not allowed to.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So the first thing is to give your spouse a gift to see what's behind your anger. Second thing is to approach conflict with kindness and concern and respect. And those two things don't usually go together, right? Conflict, kindness, concern, and respect. And again, is a choice. And I wrote down on each of these points, pray about this. And prayer always diffuses the situation. If John is to say something like, can we pray about this? And that just takes it down 10 notches right there. We don't always do it, because prayer is just by nature of what it is humbling, because we're humbling ourselves before God. But anyway, if we approach conflict with kindness and concern and respect, a lot of this has to do with nonverbal things, because if that word approach, if you're to approach conflict, how do you approach it? And you can say, can we talk about it? Can we talk about this? Or you can say, can we talk about it? There's all different ways we can say things that you're saying something without saying something, or you're saying something different than your words. John always uses this phrase, I didn't say she stole the purse. Have you ever heard him say this?
Probably.
So, I didn't say she stole the purse. So basically 6 words. So you can say, I didn't say she stole the purse. Or you can say, I didn't say she stole the purse. I didn't say she stole the purse. I didn't say she stole the purse. I didn't say she stole the purse.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say she stole the purse. And that's the same sentence, but each sentence it meant something different because of the
Mm-hmm.
emphasis that was on it. And so thinking about approaching conflict with kindness has so much to do with how we say things. John always tells me that my eyes say a lot of things. And I have to admit, he's probably true, because I can communicate a lot with my eyes. What is my body saying? If I'm turned away from him, if I don't want him to touch me, or if there's just so many nonverbals and things that we can say. If I were to say, I'm really sorry about what happened, can we talk about it later, or so it won't happen again? Or I can just say, I'm sorry.
Yes.
And I know I've done that before.
I'm sorry too for whatever my part was in it.
I'm sorry you thought that.
Does it sound like I've said that before?
So anyway,
I'm sorry too if I guess I'm supposed to say something.
Yeah, I guess I'm sorry for whatever you thought
Whatever
that
you think I need
I
to be
didn't mean
sorry
it that
for.
way, but if you took it that way, then I'm sorry. So there's not a lot of kindness and concern and respect
No.
in the way that we have approached that. So again, I think that there's the way that we approach, and you and I, we're so non-conflict oriented. We don't approach it at all, I think. At least I don't. I think back on our marriage, and I would say a good 95% of the time that we've resolved conflict is because John has said, let's resolve this. Not those words, but he'll be the one to say, we need to talk about this. And I'll just wait until he does, because that's, in my mind, that's his role. And it's not, it's because he's better at it and knows how to approach it better than I do. But I really need to grow up at 55 years old, grow up and learn how to say, can we talk about this? I'm sorry that I'm feeling this way. I've gotten a little better about it, but I still have a long way to go. So approach conflict.
Do you think that, how usually it seems like there's one person that it's easier for them to say, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like that it's easier for that same person to be a good forgiver also.
Yeah. Not me.
In my mind. Yeah. And so in our relationship, Neil is the one it is not hard for him to say, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
It is not hard for him to extend forgiveness, even if I've been a major jerk.
Mm-hmm.
And he means it. And I can tell that. And I'm the one that it's harder for me to swallow my pride and say, I'm sorry. It's harder for me to extend forgiveness, because I'm like, as soon as he always says that he'll apologize, and I'll say, yeah, because you blah, 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 and he's like, I've already apologized, but you want to pile on, and
keep
it
on
takes,
going.
keep on going and make him understand the extent of why he should be apologizing. And so on those occasions when I do apologize, it's almost the other day, something happened. I don't remember what, we were getting on each other's nerves in the kitchen. And he said something to me like, I feel like I'm just, on your last nerve, or I feel like you're just so irritated with me. And so anyway, he left the kitchen and went into the living room. And it was just one of those moments where I thought, he was right. I was very irritated. He didn't deserve that. And I walked in there and I looked at him and I said, I'm sorry. I was irritated with you. And I walked back into the kitchen and I'm patting myself on the back. And I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, he's going to be so proud of me. Oh, he's going to come in here and hug me and tell me how proud he is. And he just respects and admires me so much for saying that. He didn't do any of that. He didn't, he just took it. He didn't make a big deal out of it. And so then I'm in there going, wow, here I am apologizing and he's not even.
Oh man, I see myself in that.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I will say, and I don't mean this at all in a pat myself on the back kind of thing, but I know that as I have grown spiritually, that I have gotten better in all of these things. And I still have a long way to go. But I really honestly and truly only say that to encourage people to grow in knowing God and in having the word in their heart, because all of these things, there is power in the word, and there's, it's not up to me. It's God in me that enables us to do things better in a better way. And it's a process. It's a time consuming process that I'm still, fighting my own battles. But,
Well, you don't ever regret apologizing. I'm kind of laughing about my response and attitude to my own apology, but you just don't ever regret that. You don't,
right.
even when it's hard, when you humble yourself and do the right thing in the situation, you don't regret that. It's not like later on you're laying in bed going, I really hate that I
Yeah.
expressed love to him in that
Whereas on
situation.
the
I
other side
really
of
hate,
that,
yeah. But if you lay your head at night and you're thinking about what you said, or the looks that you gave, or anything like that that just was hurtful and made the situation worse, there's nothing left but regret
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
emptiness.
Been there, done that lots of times. Wasted a lot of time. So trying to do better. Okay, so approach conflict with kindness, concern, and respect. That's the second one. The third one is to create an atmosphere that helps make things right rather than escalating things. And pray again for the ability to do this, because when you have an environment where you feel like, someone's attacking you, you're going to attack back, or you're just going to put up the walls to defend yourself. If there's attack, conflict, there's that fight or flight. You're either just going to turn around and go somewhere else, or you're going to throw up this wall and just have this blank expression. I know I've done that before. Some of it is kind of like, I've got to put this wall up so that I can think about things, because John is processing out loud, talk it out. And I'm like, I feel like I can't take it all in, and I just need a little space. I need to be able to step back and figure out what's going on in my own mind before I can respond to any of it. But if there's an atmosphere, a safe atmosphere, or an atmosphere of love, or, I'm concerned about you, or just care, that care and concern. When we're transparent about things, like if we were to say, I'm just really confused about the way I'm feeling right now. I need to think about it. But I love you, and nothing is going to change between us. I just need to think, offering that reassurance of, I'm not going anywhere except maybe to the bedroom, so that I can think about, as we used to tell our kids, go to your room and think about your part in this. I need to go think about what's going on in my mind. And but to express, everything's okay. Because John so many times says, if things are not right with us, he'll say this all the time, if things are not right with us, nothing is right. And to me, that's a given. I know, I'm confident, and I know that things are going to be right eventually. And usually it's me, having to take some more time. But if we've created that atmosphere where he knows that everything is going to be okay between us, but we've just got to work through it. Or if he knows that, that I am sorry for my part in this, I'm working my way through explaining it. So just, give me a little bit of time to figure this out. And so I was thinking about, Paul, 2 Corinthians, those books that he wrote, the letters that he wrote to the Corinthians. There was so much conflict in the church there. But something he said in the second letter, in chapter 2, verse 4, he says, out of much affliction and anguish of heart, I wrote to you with many tears, so that you would know of my love. And I just can't wait to meet him. I just want to sit and listen to him and hear about how he became who he became. And do we feel, do we feel anguish over things, or do we just feel anger over things? And there's a huge difference. So what are we doing to create an atmosphere that makes our spouse feel safe in our relationship? What are we doing to make him feel like know that things are going to be okay? It's just we just need to take a little bit of time. I think that's a huge thing.
I do too. And I think there are some phrases that we can use that work against that security. You know, when we say things like, it's just not working,
Yeah.
or I'm just tired of this, or, you know, whatever, things that imply divorce or separation.
Yeah.
Or,
that you can never get back.
Yeah. And it feels like once you introduce those types of phrases, it's so easy to keep throwing them out there, almost like
Yeah.
a dart when you're in the heat of battle,
Mm-hmm.
and like a threat.
Yeah.
And those should never be said. Those
Yeah.
should never be introduced into a relationship.
Because you'll never get it back. I mean, you can
Mhm.
apologize for it. You can do what you can to make amends and prove that what you said you didn't really mean, but it's always going to be out there. So again, choose to
Yeah.
guard your marriage. You know, what's the goal? What's the goal? And I've had to think about this so many times. Is my goal to win this argument, or is my goal to resolve this argument?
Reconciliation.
It needs to be reconciliation, not winning, because that doesn't do anybody any good. Okay, so those three things would be suggestions, but then I just have a few practical things that I think help. Practical suggestions to guard your marriage. And the first one is to plan ahead to resolve. And it feels kind of funny to make a date to resolve things sometimes. But when you decide that you're not going to try to fix this in the heat of the moment, you know, sometimes you just need to take a break. You need to say, I need a little bit of time. I need a little bit of distance. And I'm not talking about a month. I'm talking about a couple hours, maybe. There's timing. There's so much timing involved. And if it's in the morning, if you've got kids underfoot, everyone's getting ready for school, for work, you're packing a lunch, you're trying to brush your teeth while you're slapping peanut butter on a piece of bread, and he's right there in your face, and we've got to fix this. We've got to fix this. And, you know, you want to spit your toothpaste at him and then throw the peanut butter on his face, you know, that's not helpful. So I think whichever way you are, if you're the one that needs it fixed right now, or you're the one that doesn't want to do anything about it, both of you have to meet in the middle here. And if you need it fixed right now, you've got to be able to say, okay, we'll fix this tonight. We'll talk about this tonight. And if you're the one that wants to put it off, you've got to say, okay, we're going to sit down and I don't want to say hash it out, but that's what happens sometimes. I think some things that we can say, can we please talk about this later? Or can I just have an hour? Or I think I'll be more able to talk about this after I think about it. And again, those nonverbals, that comes into play here too, because if you say it harshly, if you throw it out, or if you, you know, we can say so much that is not with words or by the way that we say our words. So plan ahead to resolve. Choose that it's going to be resolved and plan ahead to resolve, and pray about it during the day. In that interim period of time, pray that God softens your heart, softens his heart. Pray that you'll have the right words. You'll be able to understand what's going on. So that's the first one, plan ahead. Second one is to be a good listener, or another way of saying it is to be an active listener. There are listening styles that are not very helpful. And one of them is information gathering, which is, okay, you're listening. I'm listening to you, but I'm filing away. Okay, that was wrong that he said. That was wrong. This is wrong. And I'm going to pull it out later and I'm going to, you know, shoot it at you. So information gathering, there's ambushing, you know, you're just waiting for them to say something that's wrong so you can trip them up. There's picking apart, you know, doesn't matter what they say, whatever they say, we're going to pick it apart. You can also jump on certain words. If we use words like always and never, John always uses this example. If you say to your husband, you never take out the trash, well, he's going to remember that one time in 1992 that he did, and he's going to discount your entire argument because there is indeed one time that he took out the trash. But instead, choose to hear and listen for understanding. And don't you think that any conflict, if you feel like you've been heard, if you can communicate in a way that you can see that they're trying to understand what you're saying, that to me diffuses so much right there.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're trying to communicate something and someone's just like looking the other way, or they're have this look of disgust on their face, or they're maybe writing something down like they're going to use it against you later, there's a big difference.
Yeah.
So listen for understanding. It doesn't necessarily mean that you agree. If you're listening for understanding, you don't have to agree about anything. Something John says to me all the time that drives me crazy, but it's true, it's effective. He says, can you just see how I might feel this way? And he always says it in a humble way, almost always, but I digress. Can you see how I might feel this way? Can you just understand maybe why I might feel this way? And that helps so much. And if I can say something like, yeah, I can see how you would perceive it that way. And there's phrases again that you can use, like, I get it, or I hear you, or I'm trying to understand, or I can see how much this means to you. Just those little phrases, we have to swallow our pride to say them, but it's very effective in resolving conflict. You can also repeat things back for clarity, which really feels awkward too. But if they have sat down and said, okay, when you come home late, it just feels like you don't care about wanting to have dinner with me. Or if I'm terrible at coming up with examples, but if you could repeat back, okay, what I hear you saying is that you want to have dinner with me. Or they might say, what I'm hearing you say is that you hate it when I'm late. And you're like, well, that's not really it, because sometimes you just have to be late. But yes, it really is that I just want to have dinner with you. I miss you. This is a conflict we had when the boys were little. He was taking a class in Austin, and he would get home, and I was looking forward to him being home. I wanted him to be home. I missed him. I wanted whatever. But by the time he was home, I was angry. And I was like, where have you been? I can't believe you're this late. And so the very thing that I was wanting was for him to be home, and I ruined it because I was mad at him for being late. So again, that feels awkward, but again, this isn't about feeling hurting our pride, or it's about protecting our marriage. And remembering the objective here is having a God honoring and a love filled and a secure home that people that honors God, that reflects God. When people see my marriage, do they see God working in my heart and in John's heart? That's the goal. That's the objective. So be a good listener. Then the next one is to communicate as adult to adult instead of a parent to child. There's this little triangle that we sometimes draw, and there's the parent, and there's a child, and there's adult. And any other style besides adult to adult does not work, because if you're acting like a parent and he's the child, it doesn't go over too well. If you're a parent and he's a parent and you're treating each other like parents, that doesn't work too well. Martha said this to me earlier this week. She said, you can also be like sergeant to private, and that doesn't work too well either, when you have a military background. But when you look at all of those, basically, it's just treating the other person like they're subordinate to you. And that just doesn't work well. So think about how you're presenting things. Are you communicating as an adult to an adult, or is it child to child? That's not good either. Then the next one is to consider your resolution style. And there's different words. The first one is a bully style. And all of these, you want to project truth and grace in what you say. You want it to be truthful. You want it to be gracious. In a bully style, there may be truth. You're saying what's truth, but there's no grace there. And so you might be critical or punitive or aggressive. You're accusatory. A lot of times a bully will say, I'm just teasing.
Yeah.
So then it's like, it's your fault that you're taking it wrong because I didn't mean it that way. It's your fault. Bullies like to push buttons and to goad people. They're passive aggressive. So we don't want to communicate that way. Then there's what is called the postal resolution style. And this, no offense to any people who work for the postal system. And I don't think this is even a thing anymore, because I want to say back in the 90s, there was situations where postal workers, they felt, I don't remember all the details, but they felt like they were not being heard, and they were not being, the government was not taking care of them like they should. And so they would take it and take it, and then they'd explode. And I'd have to look back and see, there were incidents of postal workers, because you hear people say they're going postal.
Right.
So that's when you hold in your feelings and you take it and you take it and you take it and then you explode. So there's lots of grace there, but there's not truth. And then there's the enablers, they never speak up and reveal their feelings. So they feel a lot of resentment. They're taking a lot in. They feel like they've been injured. And it seems grace-filled, but it's really not. It's not truthful. But then there's the biblical style. And that projects both truth and grace. And that's when we do a lot of introspective thinking about how I'm, like you were talking about, what do I have to do with this situation? How can I make things better? What am I doing that needs to be changed? I'm courteous, gentle, filled with love. So consider your resolution style, and then look at the book of Philemon to see how Paul dealt with that whole situation. And I know we're probably needing to wrap this up. In fact, I'm sure we do. But I think that the book of Philemon is such a great book to see how to deal with conflict and how to deal with people in a difficult situation. So that can be everyone's homework. They can look at Philemon, figure that out.
Yeah, not any of those were really easy.
No.
But very effective.
Yeah, putting them into practice is the hard part.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you don't believe it, put it into practice and see. Try it and see. Put it to the test.
Yeah, the payoff is huge, though, because when you get to the point when you can move past the conflict, it's just so much better. So much better for everyone involved.
Very good stuff.
Yeah, good discussion. Thanks for all of the input and for the preparation that you made to get that ready, because I think it's helpful. I hope that it will be helpful to people to think about. Okay, so do you have something good this week?
I do. My something good for you is another idea, and this one is from Sally Clarkson's book about the life-giving table. She does this thing with her kids that I wish I had done, but for all of their birthdays, she spoke a birthday blessing. And they would get up, and every family usually has birthday traditions, like, do you have a special birthday breakfast or whatever that you do in the morning? But she said what their family looked forward to the most on birthdays was the ceremony of blessings. And they would all sit around the table, and they would go around the table, and each one would speak a blessing over the one whose birthday it was. And in her chapter, she talks about the significance of blessings in the Bible, not just from God to his people, but from people to people and things like that. But so they would say things about, what that person means to them, how they've grown in the past year. Here, I've just seen this growth in you, or this change in you, and how you appreciate that person. And she suggested aiming words at their heart to show them, excuse me, the anchor they have in God all the days of their lives. So she talks about putting the emphasis on what God has done through them, not just saying things like, you're so sweet and you're so kind and you're so pretty and you're, but more along the lines of, I've really seen how God has used you to make other people feel seen, like something specific that God is bringing out in them. Yeah, and speak unconditional love or words of affirmation and purpose. I really see how God is using you to blah blah blah. And so anyway, she talks about, now her kids are grown and how they still do that when they're able to get together for birthdays, and how her grown children have said to her in difficult situations, it's almost like I can still hear what my family has said to me.
Yeah.
And it's that, sense of belonging and purpose and what God has done through you and what we've always seen. And we've got your back and we love you no matter what. And
Affirming and empowering.
I
love
love
that.
that idea.
Mhm.
And she said, even probably not so much when they were little, but even more than gifts, this is what everybody looks forward to when it's their birthday.
I love that. I wonder if
I
we
do too.
could do that at Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Just go around the table. That would
Yeah.
be a neat thing. I'm going to write that on the calendar when we get done so I don't forget.
Yeah, or
A Christmas
Thanksgiving.
blessing, because
Yeah,
that's the only time
yeah.
we're all together normally.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
But to be able to share that, and because normally you don't really, at least I'm not super comfortable like being praised, to sit there while someone's doing that. But if it's a special occasion,
Mhm.
when it's not gonna, I think that would be, I think that would be a great thing. What a great idea.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Thanks. What's yours?
Mine is literally something good for you. I have some stickers. One, it's, if you're watching, you can see, it says grow, abound, and practice. And I had these made for a class that I'm actually teaching personal spiritual growth, but I have extras and I was going to do a new design next year. So I have some extras. And I also have this that's does this make me more like him, these stickers.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't take the time to explain exactly what that means, but next week in the group I will put a post up, and whoever wants one can just give me their name and address and I will mail it to them. I have some magnets of these and some stickers, and the more does this make me more like him, those are all stickers. But
that's fun.
I will send them until they're gone.
Oh, that's nice.
I'll put a post up and get everybody to send me their information. So something good.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, it's been a good discussion. Always love bouncing ideas and things off of you because, like-minded people, I feel like we hopefully, and I know you do this for me, make me want to be better. And that's what we want to do with this podcast, is to help give others reasons to do better and to live better and to look up and to be Christ-like instead of being humans that we are. We're going to be that way, but we can always do better and always seek to be more like him. So
I was very convicted listening to your list.
Does this podcast make me more like him? I hope so. That's our goal. Mm-hmm. So, unless you have anything else.
Sure don't.
Until next time.
Keep looking up.
I love you.